That's the power of that kind of wind. Versus Rita was only 110, 115, 115 officially at landfall.
That's
so
wild. And
it's only 15 to 20 miles per hour difference, but that is exponentially stronger wind.
And the whirring sound, the whizzing sound, it's like a whistle. It's crazy sounding. When you hear it, it's pretty eerie.
It is, yeah. We've heard that a couple of times. We heard it with John earlier, and we heard it on one of Matt Houston's reports as well. And some of that, I think, comes to deal with when you funnel the air. I know on Matt Houston, he was in the parking garage at LaBerge, and when you funnel the air through a narrower space, it causes that to happen. I'm not sure where John was at when he was talking to us to cause that, but probably it was something similar where the wind may have been being funneled through something or between something.
One of my friends with the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury was showing me video just sitting inside the office where they're bunkered down, and the wind is so strong you can actually see the building wobbling.
Yeah, definitely. And we heard that too from Matt Houston early this morning, where they could feel the concrete physically shaking. And remember, that's the power of that 100+ mile per hour winds just buffeting the building. Yeah, that's very, very, it just proves how strong the wind is.
Yeah.
And remember, the wind is bad. The water is even worse. Storm surge, that was our major concern, and so far not a huge problem. We are seeing signs that the water is rising though along the Calcasieu River, but still not to the level that is catastrophic. We'll see if it gets there.
We could be hopeful that it doesn't get as bad as predicted, but we won't know. Time will tell.
That's what we're hoping. We got the good news because the eye kind of went over Lake Charles. Usually the surge is more of an issue to the right of that or east of that. So since the center went over us, we kind of missed the opportunity to line up those winds perpendicular to the Calcasieu River. Okay, still could happen. We still will see some rise, but I don't think we're going to get to the degree of
the catastrophic nature of what we predicted.
Catastrophic, maybe not even eclipsing Rita or Ike surge. We'll see.
All right, fingers crossed on that. And you mentioned high tide. When does that happen?
I'll be honest, I don't remember that number off the top of my head anymore.
I think I might have heard 6 o'clock this morning is when high tide was supposed to be reached.
And I do know that there's not going to, I do remember looking, there's not going to be much of a difference between when high tide and low tide was because of the cycle of the moon right now. There wasn't going to be much of a difference in that. So I do know that one, that meaning whatever comes up probably isn't going to go down. It's going to take maybe until the next tide cycle tonight, late tonight, before maybe we'd see some improvement.
A waiting game then.
Yeah, unfortunately. And some of that will depend too on how much wind we still end up having out of a southerly direction. We still have southerly winds that's just going to act to kind of keep some of that pushed. And I know after Rita, it took a couple of days in places, especially in Cameron Parish, for those water levels to drop. And in Cameron, it comes down to you push the water inland, and it only has a few outlets to go on its own. It had the power of 100+ mile per hour winds to push it in, but then it's just got to use gravity to go back out, and that's a much slower process. And that's why some places took a week or longer for the water to recede.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens as that water, if the water, will rise in downtown Lake Charles or in the surrounding areas and those communities as the storm pushes out. And you're saying that the eye right now, where is it over?
Let's pull the radar up here and centered right now over the DeRidder to Rose Pine area, and definitely seeing signs that it's filling in. You can see the eye is kind of shrunk. It's much smaller than it was. So that's a sign that this is weaker, and that weakening trend is going to continue for sure. About the only thing I see that I am at least a little concerned, I'm going to pop this back on the air real quick. There we go. That's this band over here in East Texas that is kind of pinwheeling around the southwest corner of the hurricane. And notice some of that's beginning to come back into Calcasieu Parish. That may end up affecting areas from Starks to DeQuincy.
Is this just rainfall, or are we concerned about tornadoes, winds?
Pretty much any of that would be a concern. It's more rain and wind, but anywhere tornadoes are going to be possible, really and truly. But it's always interesting to see that heavier rain showing up. By heavier, I mean that darker color.
Red color.
Yeah, that red. Now, some of that too, I think, is a little closer to the Houston radar that we're having to use since our 2 radars here are out of commission. But nonetheless, when you have that heavy rain, it also means it's easier to push wind down to the ground. So that's probably where it's the windiest at the moment.
Now, I know you said it's weakening, which is a good sign, but for the folks who evacuated north to Ruston area, Monroe, Shreveport, they're still going to see storm-like conditions. It's not going to be as extreme as what we saw, but still something they need to watch out for.
Absolutely, yeah. This storm is going to move farther north. It will move through somewhere between Shreveport and Monroe as we head later on this morning, and it will be weaker. It'll probably be a tropical storm by that point, but still there will be winds likely gusting to near hurricane force, and that's still enough to cause power outages. So don't think that you're going to be scot-free, if you will. You know, there will be problems for sure as you go farther north.
Just have to wait till the storm passes
Definitely
before they can leave that area.
Yeah, for sure. Give it at least until later today before even thinking about trying to get out and about. So, not that it's going to be easy to be coming back to Southwest Louisiana anyway, but definitely that's a look at the wind speeds. And I see Fort Polk is updated a little bit. Still a gust to 69 miles per hour, and that's some of the strongest winds we've seen in the last couple of hours. The highest that we saw on the map is the highest wind speed I have seen on a map, at least in Southwest Louisiana, was earlier this morning at the Lake Charles Regional. It was 130 plus mile per hour wind gust at the airport. So,
now, is that because the eye is near Fort Polk right now, and the DeRidder of Fort Polk?
Yeah, and actually, if you kind of notice the arrows are different, which I question if DeRidder is updating, but considering it looks correct, I'll go with it that it is updating. That's a westerly wind at Fort Polk, or easterly wind at Fort Polk, westerly at DeRidder. That means the eye is located between those two, because you have counterclockwise circulation with the hurricane, so that definitely shows counterclockwise rotation going on there, and that spells out at least that the radar is correct, that the eye is located somewhere just north of DeRidder most likely, and DeRidder has certainly gone much calmer than it was earlier.
No, I was looking at the energy map earlier to see all the power outages. It is not looking good as far as electricity goes in Calcasieu Parish. I thought I read some comments on Facebook earlier off our feed that the Fort Polk area is starting to notice that there are power outages there as well.
Yeah, and it makes sense with that wind gust now. Just, for the last at least hour or so, the wind gusts have been in the 60 plus mile per hour range, and that's enough, especially up in Vernon Parish. You've got more woods, you've got more wooded areas, more pine, more forest timberland. It's easy to knock those trees over. Pine trees usually blow over easily or break easily, so you get power outages when that happens. They may be less widespread than farther south, but you may end up having more problems, if that makes sense, meaning you may have a tree here and then no problems in a line, and then another tree, whereas farther south, you may have the entire power grid that has to be rebuilt.
And you got to be careful too in that area where it's heavily wooded, trees covering the streets. It's going to be hard to navigate through those communities, through your neighborhood, and then all the homes that could possibly have had pine trees fall on them. So, when the sun rises, we'll be able to see, or hopefully get to see, images of what's happening in that area.
We hope so. Yeah, another little more than an hour or so from now is when the sunrise will happen. So hopefully that will literally shed some light on the situation, and we'll see what Mother Nature has actually done to the area. We know kind of what's happened already from what reports we've gotten from various folks, either through talking to or pictures, or at least text messages telling us what has happened. So it's going to be interesting to see what the light of day brings.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing that I've heard is just the sounds that people heard overnight in their homes. The whizzing sound, the whistling sounds, the wind, things flying, which is a scary thing in general during a normal storm. This storm scared a lot of folks. So, I think that has been the most interesting thing, hearing back from people.
And you may be able to, after the fact, you may be able to find out what some of the sources of those noises were, maybe. My friend Buddy Russ, who we talked to a few times earlier this morning, Gator 99 radio DJ, he was telling me during the height of this storm that it sounded like it was hailing. But it wasn't hail. It was shingles from the neighbor's house that was hitting their house.
Hailing shingles.
But it sounded like hail hitting a house. So, some of you that stayed may end up being able to find the source of some of those weird noises. What was that noise? Yep. Kind of like the picture we saw of our station with the tower being broke. Had we been in that building, we would have heard something, but not known what it was. unless it went into the building,
Right.
which we don't know what that status is
Find
yet.
out when we get back to town.
But if it had not gotten into the building, we would have heard that noise and not known what it was until
Right.
being able to see.
And asking friends, hey, what does it look like outside of your window? Well, a lot of friends have their windows boarded up, so they're
Right.
not even able to see what's going on in their front yard, their backyard, just outside on their property. So I guess once things calm down, they're able to take those boards off and assess the damage and report back to us.
Yeah, definitely. It'll give it another hour or so, and I think we'll see more. And I see the numbers at Fort Polk continuing to change, which means the power is up at least, or it's running on battery backup probably if the power is out for a little while. Wind gust is down to 51, but still hefty wind gusts for sure. Don't take that reduction to make it look like things are getting better. It's not weakening that quick. It's just a momentary drop in the winds.
It does seem like the storm is moving fast, though.
It is, yeah.
It's not stalling.
It's definitely not doing a Harvey, where Harvey
Good.
moved inland and stalled, and then stalled and stalled, and then moved back, and then came over
Right.
us. This storm is moving. It's moving at about 15 miles per hour, so it's continuing to move. We'll put this into motion here, and there you can see, there's the eye located just south of Fort Polk, I'd say centered near Rose Pine. And noteworthy to note, most of Cameron Parish is now void of rain, save for a few showers right along the coastline. Now, Calcasieu Parish, there's that heavier band I mentioned. It's definitely right around the Bivens community there. You can see some pretty heavy rain in southwestern Beauregard Parish. Likely will affect places near Starks and maybe over toward DeQuincy. But once that pinwheels or circles around this, but you can also see, if I leave my hand there, that the whole storm is inching north. It is
Slowly but
continuing
surely.
moving. It is moving. So there's light that things are improving. Like in Beaumont, there's no rain left at all.
Hey, that's good news.
In Beaumont over into that vicinity. So definitely seeing the improving conditions on that one. We'll slide a little bit farther north and into Vernon Parish and over into Alexandria. I know earlier we had a DOTD traffic cam from around the Alexandria area that was showing some very gusty winds and a lot of just sheets of rainfall. And I suspect that has not really changed much because it's still raining very heavily over there. And even where we are over here in the Baton Rouge area, there's a pretty heavy rain band that is just west of here over portions of the Atchafalaya Basin, and that extends well out into the Gulf of Mexico, down through Vermilion Bay,
Wow.
and all the way offshore. And that rain band probably is not going to move much
Okay, so Baton
east
Rouge
to west.
might get a lot of rain.
So it's quite possible that there will be scattered showers for several hours in that kind of probably 40 to 50 mile band. Areas east or west of there may not see a whole lot, but
Now, wait, this red line, is
That's
that
the
storm
tornado
surge?
watch.
Tornado watch,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah,
Just in
that's-
that whole area of the storm.
basically there's a tornado watch issued because of the hurricane.
Sure.
And like I said, they're not going to really be able to pinpoint individual storms if they were to pop up, because unfortunately the two radars that we're using are Slidell and Houston,
Okay.
and we're a long way away from
Right.
both of those
5
radars.
hours.
Unfortunately, yeah, we're about 150 miles as the crow would fly from those, and being able to detect a tornado is
Right.
virtually impossible.
Right, but
And
that's-
it's kind of why we have questions about the eye, because by this point we're looking probably 2 miles up into the atmosphere and we're seeing rain, but it's 2 miles above the ground, not what's happening close to the ground. So odds are the eye is probably smaller than what is even showing up here on
Okay.
radar,
Because it looks pretty formed.
It does.
And then it kind of, falls apart a little bit as it gets closer to Fort Polk.
And I can say that with good authority because I heard from several folks in Lake Charles when the radar was plainly showing the eye over Lake Charles, and they were telling us that no, it was still storming like crazy and was not the eye. And the simple reason why, if you've ever seen pictures of an eye of a hurricane, especially from the hurricane hunters, it has what's called a stadium effect, where you imagine you're at Death Valley and Tiger Stadium and standing at the 50-yard line, and if you looked
kinda bowls up.
things would kind of go up at an angle, both sides where the stands are. Same thing inside the hurricane. The clouds kind of go up and out. So if you imagine that way up here, the eye looks this wide, but here, closer to the ground, it's a little narrower,
Interesting.
and that's what was going on, I think, with the radar.
And I talked to John Bridges earlier this morning just to check in on him, and he was telling us, they got the eye right over Sulphur, and he said we got a little bit of a break in that eye. It was nice for a little while. And then, of course, things pick back up again.
Right, and that's always the fear.
Yes.
I was trying to stress to people, and I knew people were going to do it anyway because it's just too tempting to not go out during the eye. But there's always the danger if you go out and try to venture more than maybe opening the door and looking,
Right.
that the other half of the storm is coming, and it can be just as bad, or in some storms it's worse. Sometimes the second half is worse. This one, I think the first half was worse than the second half, but at least based on what radar data we saw, and even when the Lake Charles radar was up, the first half, the northern half, looked to be this part that was the most intense with this one. But either way, you still went back to nearly 100-mile-per-hour winds or stronger very quickly.
So I know we see Cameron Parish maybe getting a break in the rain right now. Calcasieu still seeing some rain, and of course as it goes north, what kind of conditions do you think these guys are experiencing, besides the rain, they're experiencing right now in Beauregard, Vernon, Allen, northern Calcasieu parishes?
Well, let's start at the north, and we'll work our way south, since that's worst to less worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely the worst weather is now in Vernon Parish, where the center of circulation is located. You can see that spin there on the radar, and based on what wind speeds I see, at least gusts to near hurricane force. The Hurricane Center still officially has this as a Category 2 hurricane, though we're about 12 minutes from the top of the hour. There will be another update coming at 6 a.m., and I'm sure they will be dropping this even more, maybe back down now to a Category 1 hurricane, which would be winds in the 90-plus mile-per-hour range. We'll see what they do with that, but definitely what little wind data we have from actual stations definitely says that it is weakening. But it's still going to continue. You're going to still have very windy conditions in Vernon for probably 2 or 3 more hours. It's going to take until well after sunrise happens before things improve. Now, Beauregard and Allen, obviously Beauregard, you still got some of the southern eye wall showing up, and you still have that other band that I was mentioning, as you can kind of see from just west of Jasper down to north of Lake Charles, that will still have to move through. So that's all moving north. Allen Parish, fairly widespread with rain, but especially east of 165, a lot of that is lighter in nature. Still very windy, though. Things should improve. Allen Parish, another probably hour and a half, 2 hours. I'd say about 2 hours or so for Beauregard Parish. Farther south yet, Jeff Davis seeing about 2/3 or so of the parish with clearing conditions. There are still some light showers, but it is clearing up. And I will preface this by saying these radars are from a long way away, so they don't pick up some of the smaller scale showers. But overall, the trend is that there's less rain. Still windy, even when there's no rain, Olivia, like what's going on in Cameron Parish, where you don't see a lot of rain. It's still very breezy. So don't let the rain being gone make you think that, well, the wind stopped.
Conditions are good.
Yeah, it's still going to be breezy. It won't be hurricane force.
Sure.
It'll probably be barely tropical storm force, but there's still going to be a good amount of wind. But things in Calcasieu are already improving, and hopefully in another hour or so, we may be out of that real danger risk. The worst is over. But,
Good, that's good.
But things should drastically improve in the next hour in Calcasieu.
When can we expect the storm to be completely out of Louisiana?
Probably not till this afternoon to get fully into Arkansas. It'll be definitely this afternoon, maybe even early evening, to get the whole thing out. And the one thing we'll still have to watch is this feeder band that I've alluded to.
That's a big band.
It's going to continue, and it may keep feeding itself and developing. So that will be one thing to watch. But by far the worst weather for our viewing area in about an hour or so. And I see Shelby Trahan behind you, and she's got a phone, and I think I think she wants to put someone on the air.
Yes, sir. So I'm here with Mr. Brandon Stargidley. He is with Entergy. He's going to give us an update on what it's looking like through Calcasieu Parish. Are you there, Brandon?
I am. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about what you know right now. How many people are without power in Southwest Louisiana?
Sure. Right now, looking at our numbers across the state, we have about 120,000 folks out of power, and a good bulk of that, of course, is in Southwest Louisiana. So looking at our stats, we can see we have about 75,000 out in Calcasieu Parish alone, about 2,000 out in Cameron Parish, And then a little further to the east, we have about 5,000 out in Acadia, another 5,000 or so out in Lafayette. So the numbers are increasing, but statewide, we do have about 121,000 out, with most of that concentrated in Southwest Louisiana.
And so I know a few months ago you guys were going through Southwest Louisiana and putting in those big heavy duty lines to kind of help make sure that people did have power during times like these. Now, were you seeing a decrease in outages from previous storms, or how did those things hold up?
Sure, we would have to pull the stats from previous storms to see how the infrastructure fared in this one to some other comparable storms. So we're not sure on those numbers yet, but we did do a lot of work to help beef in the system. So when times like these did happen, we could try to minimize those outages.
And so what is the plan right now for you guys in terms of trying to get that power back up to all of those residents?
Right now, like most people, unfortunately, it's a lot of just sitting and waiting until we can go in. So our crews are on standby. We have roughly 6,000 in Louisiana alone that are ready to roll into Calcasieu Parish once they're called upon and once it's safe to do so. So once they can do that, they're going to go in, they're going to start scouting for damages, seeing where we can re-energize people where safely possible, and try to get the bulk of right now we'll try to get our critical infrastructure on first. So we're going to go in, we're going to look at hospitals, communication centers, police departments, fire departments, and try to get those safety related folks back on first, so the citizens who can receive power can then safely do so.
And so do you happen to know where all of these different energy trucks might be stationed? How far out are they from Southwest Louisiana?
So we have staging sites across the state. The vast majority right now are in the Lafayette, Baton Rouge, and a few in New Orleans. And again, we have about 6,000 or so in Louisiana alone from about 20 different states that actually came in and pitched in to help, and 10,000 across our system that we can ship in. So we also have a few trucks over in Texas, a few in Arkansas, and a few in Mississippi that if we do need their resources, they're available to come in as well. So they're ready to go once it's safe to do so, and we tell them and we give them the go ahead.
Okay, and I know that people are probably going to be using generators for a while now. What is your advice to them, and have you guys had any problems with people hooking up generators incorrectly?
Sure, that's actually a common problem we do see, especially after storms. So our suggestion is, please, if you're using a generator, use it outdoors, use it to the manufacturer's specifications. So whatever guidelines they're going to give you, be sure you're sticking to those. And just please use it safely, read those instructions. We don't want to have any issues with generators.
Perfect. Is there any more updates that you're able to provide at this time? You know, how you guys did overnight, and any more of the plans or what people need to do right now?
Sure. Again, right now it's just a lot of, unfortunately, sitting and watching and seeing what the weather does. We need to wait for it to clear before it's safe for our crews to roll in and start scouting and assessing the area and getting a better feel for our infrastructure damage. But I know most people going through things like this, they're looking for information. They're trying to get the latest data out there. So what I would tell them is, if you're looking for the latest information straight from Entergy, the best way to do that is to download our app. You can go to entergy.com/app. If you want to sign up for text updates, you can text REG to 36788. You can call us at 800-9-OUTAGE, or visit us online at our View Outage site or our Storm Center site. And those are going to give you the most up-to-date stats that we have.
And that's and those, you guys send out text messages when you guys restore power outages to certain places, and that's going to help with people who might be looking to come back, of giving them a time frame of when they'll come back to power, correct?
Absolutely. Once we're able to get in and get that better assessment, we can start with the restoration estimates.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Brandon. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. I think we're going to bring our meteorologist back right now, but y'all stay safe, and please keep us updated on any changes that might come to any energy outages or anything like that, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Brandon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Actually, I think we've got Olivia coming in with another interview, so I'm going to hand things over to her.
Thank you, Shelby. I've got Rhonda Kitchens on the phone. She is in Sulphur right now with Sulphur PD. Hey, Rhonda, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Okay, so tell us what's going on your end.
Okay. Well, actually, I have a funny story about waking up to this storm. So, we had worked our long shift and everything. We had a long day yesterday, so I thought I'll get a couple of hours of sleep and get up before the storm gets bad. Well, I woke up to the sound of this storm coming in, and it was almost like it was almost like it came in like a surge, and you felt like it was just sucking everything out. I guess it's the way that the wind direction was doing. And so, yeah, that's how I woke up this morning.
Wow.
And, you know, y'all been asking everybody the difference between what we saw tonight and what we experienced in Rita. And I've got to say, that first pass through here, I was shocked. I really was. With Rita, the storm came through, and, you know, you saw the rain and everything, and you saw the wind blowing for a while before the actual, you know, eye came over. And when the eye came over, you know, you had a few minutes of hearing the freight train noise and it coming over and being, you know, kind of scared what's happening now. This one lasted and lasted and lasted. And I was like, surely we're about done with that. So then we finally got to the eye where it was the calm.
Mm-hmm.
And I had misunderstood weighing them, and I thought they said we had 2 hours before the other side was going to get us. And I guess it was about 34 minutes later, the other side hit us. And that's what they said was going to last about an hour to 2 hours. And I was
wow.
like, oh, here we go again.
Well, no, I remember texting you this morning at about 3:30 this morning, asking how you were, how things were doing, and you didn't seem too confident in what was going on.
No, and I really wasn't. You know, I must say I was shocked. I was shocked by the length of this storm. I think because, you know, whenever you go through anything and you hear those noises, and it's almost like, you know, whenever you hear someone building a house and you hear all the noises of the house going together, this was almost like something being deconstructed. Like you can hear everything kind of pulling out, and it almost feels like that. It almost feels like everything that was built is being deconstructed.
Wow. So tell us about the plans moving forward. I know you guys are waiting for sunrise to get out there and kind of assess what's going on in that area of Calcasieu Parish, in the Sulphur area. Tell us what you guys have planned and what you're looking forward to now.
Well, really, we want to get into the neighborhoods. We want to see, you know, what kind of effect has been done on people's homes. You know, of course, we're worried about businesses as well, but I mean, what are people going to be coming home to whenever they can come back in here? And, you know, I'm not sure if people, you know, want to rush back in here because, like everybody's been telling you, you know, we're out of electricity and water's not working real well. So that's another issue. So that'll be things that you know, people will need to determine for themselves what they can go through and how much of it they can go through. But we really want to be able to get some video of neighborhoods and show people what, you know, what's going on here, the damage that's been done.
And I know you living in Sulphur, you're with John Bridges, also Sulphur native. I know you guys are itching to get back out into the neighborhoods as well, just to kind of assess damage because you live in that community. So I know this is super important for you guys, and we are looking forward to getting back that video and footage on your end. I know we have a lot of viewers right now watching the feed who have commented wanting to know what it looks like in the Maplewood area, in the area behind Planet Fitness in Sulphur. I've seen all the comments. People just want to know what it looks like in Sulphur.
And, you know, we had that a lot after Rita as well, where people were calling in. And I understand that. You're away from your home and it's the unknown. And so we understand that. We want to give them as much comfort as we can to say, you know, hey, here's what we're seeing.
And I think something interesting to point out, people want to compare Rita to this storm, and I know we keep saying, let's not do that, let's not do that. They're two different storms. But if there's one thing different is that we're talking on a cell phone right now, Rhonda, and I lived through Hurricane Katrina, and cell phones just didn't work then during that storm. So this is actually pretty amazing in itself how far we've come.
Absolutely. You know, but I was still concerned going on this interview. I said, hey, don't put me on hold for a long time because I don't know how long the cell phone's going to hold up.
I know John was saying he was surprised that cell phone, he was even getting cell reception on his end. So I think things might be conditions might be improving just a little bit in that area as far as that's Wade shaking his head. He's saying, yeah, things are getting a little better in Calcasieu Parish as the storm moves out, obviously. So hopefully we're on the positive end of this moving forward.
Absolutely.
All right, Rhonda, will you guys be safe? We're looking forward to a video, any video you could try to send back and photos, that way we can show people what's going on in Sulphur.
We'll be on it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rhonda. All right, so they're just waiting for first sunlight to come up so they can get out there with the Sulphur Police Department and scope out neighborhoods and communities in the Sulphur area and kind of see what damage was done.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to hear those reports when they are able to get out there for the first time and see what the light of day actually brings to them. And
I know a lot of people are just waiting to know what's going on in my neighborhood, what's going on, what happened to my house. So we're going to try and get as much information as possible to get back to you guys.
And I will caution, even if you hear what's happened in a neighborhood, don't take, if you see the first home down a street, don't take what
Assume
happened to that
happened
first
to you.
house that happened to you. It could be worse, but it could be better too. Hurricanes are not it doesn't
One
do the
size
same
fit
thing
all kind of
everything.
thing.
No, so there's too many variables. There's trees involved. There's what the shape of your house is
structure,
the structure, the strength of your home,
The
and
drainage situation.
all
there's a
kinds of
ton
things.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't take what happened on your street if you see something, unless somebody sends you a picture of your house and you
Right.
know it's yours. Don't necessarily judge that. Obviously, it helps, but it's not a
I
perfect.
know a lot of neighborhoods set up neighborhood groups on Facebook to kind of keep in touch with who's staying in the neighborhood, who's leaving, so that way they can share photos of each other's homes when it's safe to go outside. Keep that in mind too. It's
Right.
still not safe to go outside. It's 6 o'clock now, so I know that curfew that Calcasieu Parish put in place has lifted now, but keep that in mind. It's probably best to stay indoors until this thing is out of the area.
Yeah, give it another, especially in Calcasieu Parish, give it another little bit of time. There's no rush to get out. I know we want to see it, but you're not going to be able to see a whole lot because it's still relatively
outside.
dark. So if you give it another 30 minutes to an hour, the sun will be up by that point, and there will be more light to be able to really see what is going on out there.
And do we know when sunrise is exactly? We're going to find that out. Ben, you know when sunrise is? Probably close to 6:30.
I'm never up that early to know when the sun rises.
Yeah, you're in our territory now, Wade, Northern Crew territory. 6:38 is when sunrise is expected. So
about 30 minutes from now.
are we still able to check in with any of our sky cams? Or
No.
have those all gone down?
Unfortunately, all that's out. 6:38.
Wow, okay. So there's no way to know what the conditions look
Nope.
like there yet.
The only thing I don't know if we can find on the DOTD site if any of theirs are up, but since power is out, I'm going to guess most
Yeah.
of them probably don't have enough battery backup
Now,
to have
Patrick, is
survived.
there a way to show the energy outage map of?
I'm gonna try the website crashed earlier, so
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna.
Okay, great. We're going to try and pull up that map to kind of see where all the outages are in the parish across Southwest Louisiana. We're going to try and check in to see when power is restored, but I feel like that's going to be a hard one.
That's going to be, they've got to get in
answer.
and assess first.
Right.
And, but trust me, I've seen more power trucks this time around than I think I've ever seen. In full disclosure, my brother is a lineman. He's out in California, actually, but he is a lineman, and he told me even with him, his union, that he knew several people that were here. I actually have a cousin that's in Monroe he was forward deployed to Monroe and will be coming down as well. And on the drive over here yesterday, there were a ton of power vehicles in Crowley parked, and then there were more that were even heading farther west too.
That's good. It sounds like they're going to try and get it back on the line as soon as
And I even saw
possible.
some of the marsh buggies that would be used to put power poles up out in the marsh. So those even had a police escort coming
Wow.
down Highway 190 earlier today
Probably going
or
toward
yesterday.
the Cameron Parish
I would
area.
assume so, to at least get forward deployed somewhere to be closer. And so those things are in play. And we've got that map that
Oh, awesome.
you asked for.
Let's pull that map up. All right, you can see, we can zoom in a little more. You can see the red obviously is power outages.
Yeah.
If we can go in toward the Lake Charles region. What do you think about the green areas? Wade, do you think that's generator power? People
No,
who have
it
power?
shouldn't show up on their map that way.
Or is that just a faulty map reading where the green?
I'm going to go with, barring unless they can tell us different, that it's probably an erroneous thing on there. I can't imagine that there's that much area that would have power, to be honest. It's possible.
Yeah.
Because they have hardened some lines, but more of the lines they hardened were transmission lines and not distribution. Those of you that don't know power terms, again, brothers, alignment, so
Yeah.
I've learned some of that.
You know a thing or two.
Transmission is the what takes power towards substations and sends it to where it needs to be sent out. The distribution is what comes to your house.
Okay.
So those are usually smaller poles, whereas the transmission are the big poles.
Okay, right now there's about 74,000 residents, structures with no power in Calcasieu Parish. 74,000 out with power.
And that's just Entergy's power,
Just
too.
Entergy's power,
That doesn't
right.
count Borgard Electric, which is another
Right.
provider altogether
And
in
that's
some
just in
areas.
Calcasieu Parish at this moment. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Shelby.
All right, thank you, Olivia. We actually have Major Don. He is joining us. He's with the Baton Rouge Salvation Army. He's going to tell us a little bit about some people that are from Lake Charles that are actually sheltered here in Baton Rouge. Good morning, Major Don. How are you?
Good morning. Well, thank you.
Good.
Praying for you all.
Oh, thank you so much for your prayers. They're greatly appreciated. So talk to me a little bit about the decision to relocate everyone that was located in the Salvation Army Lake Charles shelter up here to Baton Rouge.
Sure. Well, yesterday when they had a mandatory evacuation for most people in Lake Charles, we got a call from Lieutenant Thomas Marion, the officer in Lake Charles, asking us if we could help. And of course, the answer is yes. So about 15 or so men from the Salvation who were staying at the shelter in the Salvation Army in Lake Charles moved to Baton Rouge yesterday, and we've been housing them and will continue to house them until it's safe. Or there's the ability for them to return.
And do you happen to know about how many people relocated to y'all's shelter?
About 15 people from the Lake Charles shelter have been housing in our shelter since yesterday.
And so I guess what's the plan for now for those 15 people?
Well, for now, we'll just keep them so they're safe and have a place to be, and we'll assess that down the road as the storm passes and we all wake up this morning to see what's really happening. But for now, we'll just continue where we are and be as helpful as we can to those folks and to the Salvation Army and Lake Charles in general. So we're also housing in a kind of a staging area. So we have canteens and people here ready to roll towards Lake Charles as soon as it's safe for that to be. Help is on the way.
Mm-hmm. And so people can if they're looking to evacuate, maybe they lost their homes, they can go to the Baton Rouge shelter here, and you guys are going to be open arms?
Well, our shelter's now full. That's part of the problem. Part of the difficulty with this hurricane in this time is COVID-19. Mm-hmm. And our ability to house people. So right now our shelter is full, and as far as I know, most of the shelters in Baton Rouge are also full and at capacity. If people need help, the best thing to do is call 211, the helpline, and find out where there is help. They are staging and keeping track of on a moment-by-moment basis where shelter all around might be available. So if people are still looking for a place to go, I would refer them to the United Way 211 helpline, and they are prepared to give the best information that's available.
And so for the people that are in the shelter right now here in Baton Rouge, whether they're from the Baton Rouge area or from the Lake Charles area, do you guys happen to know if you guys are going to be dispersing those people out to shelters across the state, or are you guys going to keep them there until they're able to go home because of COVID-19?
Right. As for now, everybody who's at our shelter is staying in our shelter. In fact, for right now, we're locked down, so people who are there are staying there 24 hours just for their safety right now. And after today, we will assess what that need is. But right now, we're running our shelter 24 hours a day just so people have a safe place to be and stay out of this storm until it passes, and they can make decisions what they want to do and where they can go from there.
All right. Well, thank you so much for talking with us, Don. And like you said, call 211, call United Way. You can go on their website for all of that to just figure out what to do in this time. If you don't have a place to go, that's where you can call and see with everything that's going on with the hurricane, Laura, as well as with COVID-19. Well, we do appreciate you talking with us, and we appreciate your prayers for Southwest Louisiana. You're
very welcome. Glad to be here.
All right. Well, goodbye. Well, like he said, guys, make sure that you are staying up to date with all of that. I actually want to see if we can give Dick Grimiaw a call and see if he's available for an interview with us. We've been playing a game of phone tag, so I'm going to try and call him on spot right now and see if he's able to answer. But yes, make sure you guys are being up to date. Obviously, Chief Meteorologist Wade Hampton, he's doing an awesome job keeping us informed about this storm. Calling Dick right now. Again, we're playing phone tag. But I do, oh, there it is. Hello, Dick, how are you doing? We're live right now.
Okay, go ahead.
Good morning. Okay, so tell us a little bit about what's going on in Cameron Parish right now. I'm sorry, Calcasieu Parish.
Oh, okay. Well, we haven't really gotten any reports of anything catastrophic yet, but of course, we haven't been able to get out and look either. The wind is still over 50 miles an hour. It's going to have to drop significantly before they could even run any emergency calls, but we also need daylight so we can see what the damage is. But we, again, from talking to 911 so far, they have not received any calls that they thought was catastrophic.
Okay, and so you mentioned the wind speed having to drop before you guys could go out. At what point in the wind speed would you guys be able to hit the streets and assess the damage?
Well, most of the agencies use either 40 or 45 miles an hour, so we're probably within an hour or two of them being able to go out and start their assessment of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And so if people are in Calcasieu Parish and they need help, who do they call? Is it 911, 211? What are the numbers?
No, call 911.
Call 911, and then I guess from there they're just going to be put on a list to
Well, there's probably already a list of people who've called in, but if it's an emergency, call 911.
Okay, and so you said that there was possible damage to the building where you were staying. Is that still the case? You guys haven't been outside to assess that?
I don't know. We haven't been able to get outside to see what it looks like.
Okay, and I mentioned Cameron Parish when we first answered the phone. We've actually been trying to get in touch with the Cameron Parish OEP. Have you heard from Danny or anyone down there in Cameron Parish?
No, I haven't. Looking at the tide gauge, though, and might have your meteorologist comment on this, but it doesn't look like Cameron Parish got as much storm surge as what was predicted.
Well, that's fortunate. Okay, so basically the plan from here is waiting for first light, waiting for those winds to die down a little bit before you guys are going to go out and assess the damage. Would you be able to call us when that happens? Oop. And that's what you get with hurricanes here. We just lost Dick Grimiaw. The service failed. So we're going to try and keep in touch with him, see if we can get him back at some point. But for now, I think we're going to call meteorologist Wade Hampton back in here to see if we can maybe talk about those wind speeds. Oh, he's calling me back. Hey, Dick, we lost you.
Yeah. Shelby, can I say something about that? We would ask people to restrict their use of their cell phone. If everyone gets on their phone at the same time, we're not going to have service, and we need to reserve those lines for emergency calls. Mm-hmm. So if people could, if you need to make a call, make it quick, because there are other people who are waiting in line to get in the queue to get their call through.
Yes, I've realized that here within the last few hours that it's actually taking a lot longer to dial the phone. It rings a lot longer than it would usually. So I'm guessing that's everybody waiting in that queue to get the call through.
It's probably a combination of that and maybe some damaged towers at the same time. The other thing I want to say is we ask people to stay home. Mm-hmm. The public safety agencies will be getting out to get the initial roads clear. They've got probably rescues or search and rescue missions that they need to do, and people getting out and just driving around, sightseeing is not going to help out that effort.
Mm-hmm. But they are able to send text messages or communicate through certain apps that they might have on their phone, correct?
A text message would be preferable because it doesn't take up as much bandwidth in the system. So yes, those apps like that would be preferable to voice.
All right. Well, do you have anything else that you'd like to say to maybe the residents that stayed in Calcasieu Parish, or any of your residents that are looking to come home as soon as possible?
Well, it's too early to say on when the residents could come home. That we won't know that until daylight, so we can see what the damage is. But you can expect just about every road in this parish and probably some of the other parishes around here are going to have major debris on them, so it's not going to be safe to venture out.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dick. We appreciate you talking with us. We know that you're super busy trying to keep a handle on everything out there in Calcasieu, so we really appreciate you taking this time to talk with us.
Okay, thanks, Shelby.
All right, we'll check back in with you a little later. I also had been receiving some messages about the Coshada tribe and the casino out there. You know, we've talked about the Golden Nugget, we've talked about LaBerge, and I spoke with the tribal management, David Sickey over at Coshada, and he said as far as they know, there's no significant events or details right now that they're experiencing. So it seems like they're okay right there over in
and that
Coshada.
makes sense. That really makes sense because they're kind of out on the edge of the eye. The eye wall kind of just missed them. They were kind of brushed by it, but definitely not to the degree that Beauregard Parish or Calcasieu Parish saw. Allen Parish was a little bit better off. Same story for Jeff Davis Parish. Things were not as bad as Calcasieu. The western part of Jeff Davis probably was a little worse off than the eastern part. And I've actually already been in communication with our weather watcher, Teresa Lyons, from the Lake Arthur vicinity. And she is physically in Lake Arthur right now. And she is actually just outside of Lake Arthur, closer to Thornwell, where she lives. But they were fine, no problems this morning where she was, where they rode out the storm at in Lake Arthur. And as soon as the sun comes up here in a little bit and there's enough light, they're hoping to get to drive to their house and see what they have left.
Right. And so I know you guys were mentioning that the radar might be a little off because cell towers are down or lack of communication thereof. But it looks like Lake Charles and this southern portion of the region is going to be in the clear for a little bit. But you guys are still worried about that high tide coming in. Is that correct?
The surge is definitely still happening. We just looked at the only reporting gauge that is working is the one at the Pithon Coulee pumping station. All the rest of them on the Calcasieu River are out, and that's because power is out. I suspect the one at the pumping station is working because that has generator power to keep the pumps running, and that's probably why that gauge is working, or maybe it has a better battery backup. But it was reporting a water level up to about 6 feet. To put that in perspective, that's still well less than Rita and Ike's surge levels, but it is up there. It's more than what the water level was during Harvey, which wasn't really a surge issue then. That was more of a rain issue, but it is up. It was interesting early this morning when the eye was over Lake Charles, it was down to near zero, at least according to the gauge, and has surged up in the last few hours. But Dick kind of alluded to it about the gauge in Cameron was not as extreme. It only got up to 11 feet.
Right.
During Rita, that was 15. So we talked about that earlier this morning with when Cynthia was up here, and that I thought that at that point the surge was probably not as bad as what we had feared, and I still contend that it is not. The only places that may have the more major surge damage would be the eastern part of Cameron Parish, places like Grand Chenier, North Island, and over toward the Rockefeller Refuge, and maybe even into Vermilion Parish, just because you guys were closer to, we're on the right side of that storm, which is where the surge is more of an issue. We'll have to just wait till folks can get into that area and see what really happened, but I am cautiously optimistic that things from Cameron West may not be as bad as what we had feared.
That's so fortunate because I know we were really worried about all of those people that had stayed down there in Cameron. I know they said approximately 150 people had actually chose to ride out this storm. We were really worried about them. We're still looking to get in touch, like we said, with the Cameron OEP. We haven't been able to get in touch with him since, I believe, around 10 o'clock last night, a little bit of the overnight hours. So we're still trying to to get in touch with him. I'm just worried that people are going to see this radar, see that there's no more rain coming, and think that it's okay to leave their homes. Is that a worry for you guys as well?
It is. You know, if you're here in Cameron Parish, odds are you're probably not going to be able to get out. Though that too is going to depend on the amount of surge, really and truly. But it's still not safe to be out and about, especially the western half. The western half is probably a little better, again, because you were on the quote-unquote better side of that hurricane, but really I would encourage you not to really be out driving too much. Just give it time. The only good news, we don't have a ton of trees in Cameron Parish, so we're not in a situation where there's going to be a ton of trees potentially across the road to have to clear. So from that standpoint, maybe it's somewhat okay. I don't want to say it's okay, but it's somewhat okay if you can do so safely. But I'm not sure where you're going to go.
But those trees and debris that you were talking about, they are going to be a problem for parishes like Calcasieu, Beauregard, because there's so much damage that can be done to all of those structures or nature that's around it. Yeah,
definitely. Trees are much more of an issue the farther north you go, and even more so in Beauregard, Vernon, and Allen, because you've got a lot of timberland here too. But I know the couple of people that I have spoken to in Lake Charles specifically said that there were a ton of trees down, and they didn't just mean limbs, they meant actual full oak trees blown down or uprooted. So that's really interesting to hear, and it's going to be really interesting to see that, because we had been dry. We hadn't had a lot of rain the last few weeks. There had been showers, but the ground was not saturated. Normally, to uproot an oak tree, it's more of a saturated ground. Right, but without the ground being saturated, now of course it rained before the wind got there, but not that much. It's going to be interesting to see what the shape of those trees really was like. But I know I talked to my buddy Russ, literally buddy Russ, on Gator 995 this morning, or texted back and forth, and he was that way. He's like, their house had no damage at all, nothing, but the whole road was just covered in trees. He said, so they're going to have to cut their way out. Yeah, that's the station I was talking about there at the Python Coulee. You can see that water level is up. But again, that's nowhere near the Rita stage, which is that record of 9.5. And really, we were even more fearful that it was going to be worse than that. So we're in about 3.5 feet less than Rita at this point. I will admit it is not stopped rising, though it has really slowed in the last update, and we're pretty much at high tide. So odds are that's going to drop maybe very slowly through the morning, and it may take until this afternoon before it really drops.
And so obviously, we're grateful that they didn't get as much of a surge and as much rain and water as we thought they would. But I guess what changed in this storm, or was it just the potential that they could
No, this is an easy answer, actually. This is an easy one to answer. So basically, the hurricane made landfall over Cameron. So the surge is always worse on the right side of the storm. So that's why
you said the Vermilion Parish area.
If the storm had made landfall Johnson Bayou, it would have been much different in Lake Charles. We would be talking about that catastrophic storm surge that we had feared. And the same story at Holly Beach. I don't think they had the surge that potentially could have happened either, because the eye was here. So they had northerly winds, which was pushing the Gulf away from the coast. Now, eventually, after the storm moved in, they did get some southerly winds, which is why our water is rising in Lake Charles now, but it was not to the degree that it could have been if it had been when the storm was over here pushing all the water against the coast. So in that sense, usually the surge is east or right, depending on which direction the hurricane's going. It's really the right side of the storm. Away from the center is where the surge is worse. So technically, you really want the landfall to happen right over you if you don't want the storm surge to be a problem.
That's so interesting how
that
works.
But of course, you have the wind problem, so it's kind of a which one do you really want? But I'll tell you, if you had to choose, I would take the wind any day over the surge. Because the wind, yes, bad, even if it is 150 mile per hour, bad. But the surge remember, fill a gallon jug full of water. That's about 8 pounds as 1 gallon. And Chief Meteorologist from WAFB, Jay Grimes, was with us way early this morning, or maybe it was technically late last night, whichever one you want to call that, really. But he was in here, and he put it even at a bigger perspective. He said, if you fill a refrigerator full of water, that's almost 2,000 pounds. So that's something, about as tall as I am, maybe a little taller, about 6 feet tall, and that's 2,000 pounds of water. Now, imagine something much bigger hitting the whole side of a house, how much force there is with that. And then you have wave action on top of that. So water is literally like a wrecking ball on a crane that you would use to destroy buildings. That is what water does. And thankfully, I think we dodged that for at least the more populated portions of Cameron Parish's coastline. The only question is going to be places like Creole, Grand Chenier, and toward the Rockefeller Refuge. And we'll have to wait and see what daylight brings on that one, I guess.
Okay, so going back to Lake Charles area, I saw some things on Facebook. You guys have not been receiving any reports of tornadoes that may have happened. Maybe people are just mistaking it for really heavy winds.
There's really not a good way to discern the difference between hurricane damage and tornado. I know people try to say, well, this was caused by a tornado and not this. And you can do a little investigation, but at the end of the day, what difference does it make?
Yeah.
Because damage is damage. It doesn't change your insurance. I'll make that clear. It doesn't change the insurance because we're dealing with a named storm event anyway. So proving if it was a tornado inside of a named storm doesn't negate the fact that you have a different deductible because it's a named storm. So it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But the only way to really know would be if someone was outside, which they shouldn't be, and saw it. So they happen. We know they happen, but detecting them is, especially since we have 2 radars that are out of the equation that would normally detect those, it's really impossible to detect them with radar that's so far away.
Gotcha. And so I guess what's next for Southwest Louisiana? Cameron, Calcasieu, Beauregard, all of them.
Well, we're done with the worst weather for sure. I know it's still breezy. I've been watching our reporter from WAFB, Matt Houston, who's at La Bears. I've seen it in his work that he's doing for WAFB here. I've seen it, and it's still very breezy there. You'll notice the bulk of the rain is about to come to an end, but it's still going to be breezy. Even down here in Cameron Parish, Shelby, that it's still windy. Even though there's not a lot of rain, I still suspect the winds are at least probably near tropical storm force, which means 40 miles per hour, at least in gust. It may not be sustained that strong.
And when do you expect those to die down a little bit?
It may take until mid-morning or so as the storm pulls farther away. And the other thing I'm watching for, I'm not sure if you were up here, I think that was Olivia, we were talking about this band that's over. Yes. It's raining here in Baton Rouge now, and that extends down into Vermilion Bay and then out over the Gulf of Mexico. And notice, this is actually developing more out here. This feeder band's probably not going to move, but it's going to be interesting to see what these showers do closer to Corpus Christi. They may get pulled up, and we may still end up with some scattered showers later. Obviously nothing hurricane from that, but more rain is just not what we need if you're trying to, for the folks that are there and can try to do some cleanup or assessment, that may hinder that somewhat. So, but the worst is over for half our viewing area. Still dealing with the hurricane actually inland, and I forgot to check this at the top of 6 o'clock. We'll take a quick peek at the latest information, and there's the newest information from the Hurricane Center. Winds now down to 105 miles per hour, so continuing to weaken. Air pressure's up. That's an inverse relationship. So the air pressure goes up, the wind speed goes down. Still moving north at 15, so good news there that part has not changed. It's been 15 miles per hour since very early this morning, so very consistent on that. And again, things will continue to improve. The center of the circulation, center of Laura, located up near Fort Polk at this point, and still got that rain band. Thankfully, the one I was talking about a little earlier in East Texas is weakened. There's still rain falling, but things are improving.
Right.
We're not there yet as far as being perfectly improved, but we're better than we were. So the worst is over.
Correct. And so people were really comparing this storm to Rita. And I remember in one of our meetings, you actually said this is not comparable to Rita. But what are some of the main differences now that we're kind of getting through that?
Yeah, and you know, I hate comparing storms because people get too hung up on, well, Rita did this, Rita did that, and no. And this is why, because this storm almost made it to Category 5 status. Rita was a Category 5
and then
when it was out in the middle of the Gulf,
right,
and was weakening when it made landfall. This storm was a tropical storm in the beginning in the Gulf and was strengthening right up probably within 6 or 12 hours of landfall. It finally stopped strengthening about 6 hours before landfall.
Wow.
But never weakened. So it came ashore and had the very potential of going to Category 5 strength. So that is one of the big differences with this storm. The other one, Rita had a ton of dry air that got pulled in, and if you had saw the radar picture of Rita, like at this point, the whole southern half of the storm had no rain at all. Whereas this storm, yes, there are some hints of drier air. That's why there is less rain, but it's not as prevalent as Rita. That same dry air in Rita is what helped to cause it to weaken. Now, obviously, the difference the other way is Rita made landfall more near Johnson Bayou, so that surge was increased up the Calcasieu River, which is why we had the surge levels we did, whereas this storm was, 15, 20 miles farther east, and that meant the difference of a surge running up the Calcasieu River versus not going up the river.
Right. All right. Well, it looks like we're really making some progress with this storm moving out of our area. Hopefully, with the sun rising here within the next few hours. I'm not even sure what time it is right now.
It's about now.
Okay.
It's at 6:38, so
6:30.
about 5 minutes from now officially is when sunrise is.
Okay,
so.
perfect. Hopefully at that time we're going to see some of our OEPs and our law enforcement heading out to possibly assess that damage, especially down here in the Lake Charles area, so that they can go and see and let our parish know what's going on, with most of the parish evacuating. So
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to seeing what it's looking like outside, so we can get some of that information to you guys. I know y'all are watching from all across the country and just really want to know what's happening on the ground.
And trust me, we want to get that to you as well, because we're tired of talking about the same thing over and over again. To be honest, we can joke a little bit about that. It is still a serious situation.
Oh,
Trust me, we get it. But we want to get you that video of what's going on and info out there. But just realize we can't, because the officials aren't going out yet because it's still too windy. They can't go out yet. And with the cell network still being somewhat hindered, it makes it difficult for folks that are there to try to send much more than text and maybe
Right.
phone calls to send that video back.
And that goes back to what the Calcasieu director of OSEP was saying, Dick Grimion. He was saying, please, if you don't have to call anyone, please don't make those phone calls. Those need to be available for our law enforcement to get in touch with each other, for the news stations to get in touch with them, so that we can get that information to you. So don't call or call anyone, but you can send text messages. There are several apps that you can communicate with through text messaging. Facebook is also available. And he said, don't be out there on the roads. Wait for them to say it is safe for you to go and check around the different areas. So we really appreciate all of that information from him and trying to keep everyone safe.
Yeah, someone was asking a question. I'm not sure if they meant that as a question or if they meant that as a what did we mean by that, but they were asking about surge in Lake Charles. And again, that graphic I showed you a minute ago of the surge definitely proved that the tide gauge, it's only 6 feet now at the Python Coulee pumping station. Remember, with Rita, that number was 9.5 feet. So yes, there is a surge. It's just not to the catastrophic level that we were worried about. It is there. Yes, it is a surge, and there's that map once again, and you can see that was updated as of 5:30, so it's about an hour old, but that's it. And I don't think that it has gone much higher than that. We'll just have to wait and see, because some of that too is hopefully most folks that were in places that could have seen that surge and been affected by it, hopefully they heeded our warnings and left, because those are the folks that would have been at the greatest risk of, to be frank, dying in this storm, because being trapped in a home is a death sentence. You don't want to be trapped in a home with water rising. Wind can cause damage and can cause death too, don't get me wrong, but being trapped in a home that's filling with water, there's not many
dangerous.
escape routes.
Yeah.
So, and there's certainly no good escape routes. So I'm hoping that some of that is maybe just because, we're not getting reports because there weren't many people to tell us, but I don't think it's going to be as extreme as what we had feared. So.
And I have been reaching out to some people on Facebook to talk with them. People that have stayed and they've posted pictures of damage. I saw one. They had debris in their closet with 3 kids inside. They decided not to evacuate. It was super scary. People with garages on top of their cars, trees snapped in half. So some of that regular storm damage, but some things more severe as well. And so it's going to be interesting to see just how much damage and where that damage is within the different parts of the cities, because we know that different places get hit different ways.
Yeah.
And that's going to make a big difference in who has more damage.
And I think this was when Olivia was up here a minute ago. Forgive me, it has been a very
long day.
almost 24
We're
hours
working
now, because I was up about 8:30 yesterday morning and have not been to sleep since. But I believe it was when Olivia was up here a minute ago that we was talking about, if you do begin to see pictures, or even we begin to show stuff, please remember that if you even see your neighborhood, don't take the one house you see as a guarantee of what's going to happen for every house, because it's going to be different. There's too many variables to say, well, this happened to John's house at the beginning of the road, and mine's going to be the same. It's just impossible. You don't know the strength of the house, the condition of windows, whether it was boarded up, trees that could have fallen on the house, and there's just too many variables. But and even what happened from Rita versus this storm too. If you see Rita and say, well, my house survived Rita, it's going to survive. No, that doesn't
not necessarily true.
Exactly. It does not mean that is the case.
Oh, some chairs.
I will gladly sit down.
You guys have been standing for a long time. Here are some chairs.
Do we have any updates from anyone, Olivia and Ben? Have we been able to get any updates from anyone else?
We have been on air with WAFB. We just got off the set.
Oh, they just got off the set
Yeah.
with WAFB.
We will make phone calls and get an update for
Yeah,
you.
obviously reports are going to be sparse, right now, because people are still in a state of, coming out of being, hunkered down from overnight, and I'm sure those reports will start coming in. We have our reporters on Jillian Corder and Brady there, so hopefully when we get daylight, we'll be able to get a lot more visual on what things look like with the damage.
And it's funny, you can't see her off camera, but Sydney Roberts is over here off camera and has 3 cell phones in her lap. Is it 3 or 4?
It's 3.
I see 3 in her lap.
Oh,
so
no, one's mine.
so that's how much she's trying to get a hold of different people and feed phones to Shelby here next to me. So.
Yes, I'm actually trying to see if I can maybe get in contact with Jillian Corder. She is camped out with Calcasieu Sheriff Tony Mancuso. They spent the night there riding out the storm, so I'm actually going to give her a call right now and see if she's able to give us an update a little bit about what they're seeing right now. Have they been able to leave the house? And if the house,
the sheriff's department, department,
and see if they've been able to get anything. She was not able to answer, so we're going to still try and get in contact with her. I'm going to leave my phone open. There you go. So yes, just work with us. We're getting this on the air live as it's happening. So it's just really interesting to see how all of this is going to unfold. Yes, but we are working to get new information. As I stated earlier, we still have not heard from anyone in Cameron Parish.
Yeah, and I thought I remember, there's been a ton of info that has flowed through the ears, but I thought I remember Danny saying that they were actually in Allen Parish is where they were physically holed up.
Okay.
So, maybe it's probably a communications problem. That's probably their problem, because they definitely didn't stay in Cameron Parish, because, they're telling you not to stay there. They're not staying there, so they know it's not safe. So.
And for those people that might be watching in Cameron Parish, if you do have service, they did delay all emergency services until it's deemed safe, except in Grand Lake, I believe. So unfortunately, it is going to be some time before emergency officials are able to get to you. But again, put those calls into 911. That's how you're going to get on the list for people to go out to you as soon as possible. And that's not just for Cameron Parish, that's for everyone, Beauregard, Calcasieu, all of them. Call 911 if you have, if you need to get out of your home, if you need somewhere to go, call 911. They're going to be able to put you on that list, and as soon as the OEPs and all of the law enforcement agencies check on emergency personnel, they will be getting to you in order of who needs help the most. And they're going to be the ones to make that decision of where they go first. But you're definitely going to want to be on the list.
You know, I'm getting texts, and I won't name names, but a friend of mine texted me and said, "I'm alive. You will never have to attempt to convince me to leave again." And he obviously stayed.
And that must be because of the sounds,
or
what?
It was just that bad, and I'm asking about damage as well to see, damage. He was one of those, he heeded my warnings about taking items. He told me he even had a battery-powered reciprocating saw that he was taking with him to his safe room. So he took it to another level, because I'd been saying all along, take a hammer or crowbar, but
so if you
some
need
sort
to
of
get out,
saw to cut yourself out. Yeah, because I had stressed that yesterday.
So scary.
A hammer or crowbar, because if the building collapsed around you, you need a way to be able to potentially get yourself out, especially because we know emergency services were not going to be able to come for, we don't know how long. Definitely a few more hours, and you don't want to be trapped. If you were in Lake Charles where it's not raining anymore, conditions are improving, you'd hate to have to be stuck.
But it's still going to be some time.
So
And when you're stuck, that's a matter of life or death. You have to be able to get out as quickly as possible. You don't want to stick around there. Are we able to check the wind speeds? Because I know that was something
unfortunately
that
most of those stations are down, but we'll look at the few. We'll look at the few that are up. The only ones that are up is Jennings, I believe, is current since it hasn't gone away. And Fort Polk, that one's definitely current, and DeRidder. And you can see the circulation. Remember, a hurricane, the winds go counterclockwise, so this direction as I'm showing. And you can see DeRidder, that's an east wind, and then Fort Polk's a north wind. That means the center of circulation is somewhere just west of the Fort Polk weather reporting station. And the wind gusts there, 48 miles per hour, certainly windy, and Jennings still reporting a 54 mile per hour wind gust. So still some pretty good breeze out there, and even Lafayette, you can see the wind going on. And of course, unfortunately, all the ones in Calcasieu Parish are out because the power is out, and because the wind took the power out. So there's definitely problems. That's why all those stations are not reporting.
Okay, so I do think that we are getting reports that there is damage at the Calcasieu Parish Sheriff's Office. I'm guessing that this is coming from our reporter Jillian Corder, who was camped out there overnight. I think it's some pictures. Wow. That looks like an emergency vehicle.
Yeah, it's definitely a truck there.
Yes, I see the sheriff's office, sheriff's logo on the other one. Is that brick on top of it? Possibly. Built from the building. So definitely some damage that they are going through there. Again,
possibly something peeled off the roof.
Possibly. Okay,
that's
off the roof.
That's probably, without knowing. Once Jillian and Brady are able to actually talk to us, they'll be able to probably tell us more. But it's hard to tell what that one is. Some sort of pillar.
Yeah, a pillar or some sort.
Yeah.
Or like one of the parking pillars. So yes, they are receiving some damage, and I know that the CPPJ building, I think they received some damage, as well as where Dick Grumillon was located at OSEP. They all received damage to the buildings. They just haven't gotten a chance to figure out how much damage was sustained.
Yeah.
Even us around KPLC, we were looking at the Capitol One tower, and people have been comparing the storm to Rita, but in Rita, only a couple of windows were blown out. But we've seen pictures this morning from Capitol One building, and all of the windows have been shattered out of that building. Structural damage over at St. Pat's Hospital in downtown. So this storm has brought a lot of damage to different places across the city.
And that's the difference of the 115 versus 100, and not sure yet what it'll be analyzed at when it was over Lake Charles, but I'd say at least 130 mile per hour winds, because there were gusts for a long time to near 130. So that's the difference. It doesn't sound like much when you just say the numbers, but it's a drastic increase in the power that wind has as you increase that speed.
And I think you did a good job of explaining it the other day before this storm made landfall, of how you guys measure wind speed and how the difference between 115 even to 120 can be a difference in how much damage is done to a home, a business, or anything.
Yeah, when you start on the low end of the scale, it's nothing between 5 to 10, but when you go from 115 to 120, it's exponentially different. It's a logarithmic scale. In those of you that know math, it's exponentially different. And if you start going even more wider range, from 115 to 150, like we're talking potentially with Laura here, that's why the damage was just so much more, is likely so much more, and why we feared it could be. And I'll admit, obviously never expected it to get to 150 miles per hour. I will freely admit, though, and I hope most of you get, why starting Monday and Tuesday I was stressing that this could have become a major hurricane, and unfortunately that became true. I was worried about one of these what's called rapid intensification cycles, and that's exactly what Laura did. Once it started, it continued from tropical storm right up to borderline Category 5 hurricane.
And I think so we're currently about to get into September, but hurricane season does not end until the end of
November 30th officially. For Louisiana, we're usually done by the middle of October, and that's more to do with cold fronts that come down and usually push everything off. History says there's never been anything beyond late October into early November. So, but we still got, that still means about 6 more weeks of this. The peak goes for several more weeks as well. So we're definitely not done. So don't let your guard down. We certainly hope we don't deal with this again. No one ever wants to deal with it, period. But we certainly don't want to deal with it again. But all you have to do is look at Florida to see what can happen. In 2004, they had 4 storms, and 3 of them that passed over the same point in Florida, near Orlando. So.
And that's what I was kind of getting at was, is there a potential that we have another storm?
Okay.
Jillian's ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you ready, Cass?
And it looks like we have a live view from them, I believe, if that's what I'm looking at right now. Yes, so we're going to go over to Jillian Corder. Jillian, can you hear us? Are you able to tell us anything?
All right, here with Calcasieu Parish Sheriff Tony Mancuso, and getting up this morning, the sun is just starting to rise. You're starting to get a better idea of what's going on out there, and took a lot of damage here at the Sheriff's Office.
We really did. We haven't really been able to get out and assess anywhere out. So we're kind of, I don't want to say we're trapped in here, but there's debris, trees, power lines, power poles. We have extensive damage here at our office. So we're going to have to make our way. We have other crews in other areas, so we'll make it out. And that's what I was talking about when I said yesterday. It's just not as simple as people would think. So we're going to deal with that and fix that issue when we can. And our main concern right now is to try to work our way out. And the buildings are damaged. There's nothing we can do about that. We'll deal with that whenever we can deal with it. So we are okay. The men and women that work here are accounted for and okay. I've talked to most of the chiefs. They're accounted for and okay. I've talked to Sheriff Johnson and his group and Cameron, and they're okay. So, we're just now in the infant stages of beginning what we're going to start doing to recovery, and that's just going to take a lot of time. So.
I know some people have managed to get out just into the parking lot to kind of see a little bit of the damage around the area, and I heard someone saying that there's barely a vehicle in the parking lot that doesn't have at least one window busted out.
Yeah, I'm telling you, we have extensive damage. We have a truck. I don't know if we were able to feed that to them, but we have a truck. One of my chiefs completely crushed. I mean, it's crushed. I don't know what hit it. I don't know. We don't know. Bollards. Our bollards are designed to keep a vehicle from ramming into our building. They should withstand a lot, and we have like 7 of them that are crushed. So, it is a devastating storm, and I think when we get out into the community, we're going to learn that. But but we'll fix it. You know, I told you when we did our one-on-one interview before this that, you know, we're a resilient community. I'm going to look at the positive side that we'll help each other, we'll work hard, and we'll get through it as a community. I know we have other damage. I think, and again, I'm not confirming this, Stitch said that the Isle of Capri, they believe, had some, the boat get away, and it's up against the I-10 bridge. So, you know, I'm sure DOTD will have to get that removed and assess that, so that's going to affect traffic. I know that I have a son-in-law that works at one of the local industries, Citgo, and they had them housed at the Golden Nugget, and they have damage, but they're okay. So, you know, we can deal with the property damage. We'll work through that. So far, no life endangerments from anybody that we know of, and so we'll have to start assessing that too and see where that leads us. But we're going to hope and pray that everybody's okay. We have talked to a lot of people who weathered the storm and they didn't like it, but they're okay. So now we got to try to get to them, and we can't even get ourselves out right now. So.
And on that same note, I know a lot of people are anxious to come back, those who did evacuate, to come back and see the damage and to come to their houses to see what happened. But while there's no restrictions for them to come back, your advice is not yet.
Well, I mean, I don't know that they can get here. I just was on the phone right before you walked in with who is the sheriff in Jefferson Parish, who is sending me a crew as we speak to come help us. And I said, Sheriff, look, yeah, we're ready. You know, it's a 3-hour drive, so by the time you get here, the weather ought to be okay to where you can come in safely. But I just don't know what the conditions are for you. He said, well, don't worry about that. We've got our equipment, chainsaws, and we'll get here. So, you know, there's down power lines. There's a lot of issues here. And if you start doing things on your own, then you're not a professional and don't know what you're doing. All you're going to do is hurt us even more, because then we're going to have to be rescuing you and taking care of you. And, you know, our hospitals, although they're okay, and we've been checking on them, and we have deputies at those hospitals, some of them have sustained some damage. They're okay. And everybody in them's okay, but they're stressed right now. And so let's not put added stress on them. But yes, you can come back. I just don't know that you can get here. I don't know what the interstate system is between Beaumont. I think Beaumont just didn't really have a lot of they don't have any damage and they're okay, but I can't tell you what's between us. I don't know what road signs are completely blocking interstates, if there are. So I know that we have extensive damage. I haven't had the chance to get out there and look myself and put my eyes, but I can tell you from here, we have extensive damage in our parish and in Cameron Parish. So, and I think to the north of us too. Honestly, I believe they had some pretty, you know, Ron, the sheriff in Cameron, Ron Johnson, said they can't get here right now. Like they're trying to figure out and maneuver their way. So, you know, they could be hours getting here. So we're just going to have to deal with this. And look, I want people to be patient. I know everybody's on edge and anxious. Just relax and take a deep breath. And we're going to get through this, but people are going to have to be patient.
A lot of patience. It's going to be an hours-long process.
Absolutely. And patient with one another and help each other. Everybody's going to need a little help during this. Our sheriff's office is going to need some help. You know, we're going to need help from other agencies to come in to help us get through this. We have a lot of damage. I'm going to have displaced workers. I mean, I'm going to have to, I don't think I'll have to rebuild this department, but we have extensive roof damage, water damage, not from flooding, but from rainwater that got in. So we're going to have to figure out where we're going to put these people, where they're going to work out of, and how we're going to deal with that. But we'll deal with it. It's, you know, again, our personnel is fine. They're intact, and they're our greatest asset. They did unbelievable work through the horrible conditions last night. Y'all saw it for yourself. They made some adjustments really quick and really fast. And they're unbelievable. They're amazing, and they're going to do amazing work for you if we can get out of here and get to work. But we just got to work on that now. Yeah,
working your way out from under all the debris that's in this area, trying to carve a path. That way you can get to those in the community. And again, for those who have evacuated, I know you're anxious to get home, but try to wait it out as long as possible, because it's going to be quite a mess trying to get back to this area. For now, we'll send it back to you guys.
Jillian, that was Jillian Corder with Sheriff Tony Mancuso of Calcasieu Parish. He said that he talked with a bunch of different law enforcement from around the area. They are all okay, but just trying to figure out what to do. One thing that I noticed that he did say, there's extensive damage. We knew that.
Yeah, we expected that.
Exactly. But before this storm, we saw community members coming together, helping each other, boarding up their homes, boarding up their businesses, and that's what we're going to have to do after this storm as well. Once we start getting out of our homes and getting out of our businesses and wherever we're sheltered, we're going to have to help each other rebuild and help law enforcement because they're going to need it as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a big effort that's going to take a long time. This isn't going to be a day or two thing either. It's going to be a while, unfortunately.
Yes, and so with the hospitals, we have CalCam, Memorial, Christus, they all are okay. Some of the hospitals, like he said, did receive some damage. We've seen pictures on Facebook and still working to confirm with CalCam that they received damage inside their building. As we said earlier, the Christus St. Pat's Bridge, that is damaged over in downtown Lake Charles. I talked with Matt Felder with Memorial Hospital earlier this morning. It must have been around 2 a.m. And he said that Lake Charles Memorial was doing okay, that they didn't really have any damage. They didn't know if it was flooding because they couldn't see that far, but everyone inside was okay there. One thing that I heard Sheriff Tony Mancuso say was surprising was the Ala Capri boat is possibly over by that bridge.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty scary.
Yeah, at this point, I guess we should wait until there's more confirmation to make sure of that.
That's correct.
Not that I doubt Tony's info, but sometimes things get passed along. But I'm sure we'll be able to know that relatively soon. Now that the sun's up and there's some light, and officials should begin to be able to get out and about. But if that is true, that's definitely a interesting turn of events, to say the least, and one that could have long-lasting impacts if it's bad.
If it's extensive damage, and we do have calls out, text messages out to both the Ala Capri and to DOTD working to confirm that information. And as soon as we get that, we will let you know about that damage, because that I-10 bridge, that's something that people use daily to get around for.
Yeah, well, let's hope that that's not the case, because that's just going to be a colossal nightmare if that is the case. So, but we'll wait until we get that word from DOTD or state police and someone. I'm sure whoever, maybe James Anderson too, someone with state police. We might could try them too. They could be able to give us an answer, because I know they're around as well. So. Or maybe just an update from them in general. They can tell us some things going on around Troop D.
Again, don't get on the roads. Please stay off of those, because all of the officials, if there's one thing that all of them are saying, is please stay home. Don't go out before you have to. Don't go out before you can go out, and assess that damage around your home, around your neighbor's home. Really just wait until this storm passes. And ask for help from officials before you start roaming the streets, looking for damage. That was something that Dick Grimion said.
Absolutely. We'll do a quick little recap here. I know a few folks were asking about the weather. There's the new 7 o'clock information on Hurricane Laura. Winds right now 100 miles per hour, so continuing to weaken. Air pressure's up to 970 millibars, still moving north at that 15 mile per hour pace. So good news, it's continuing to weaken. We'll look quickly at the wind speeds. I don't see any major changes here. You can see 39 mile per hour sustained in DeRidder, 31 sustained at Fort Polk with a gust of 47. Quick look at the radar. I know it's still raining for some of you, and you're still dealing with some wind issues in some areas. So we'll take a quick peek here at the radar and show you what's going on. Obviously, the places with the issues right now are over portions of Vernon, Beauregard, and Allen Parish primarily. The center of circulation, we'll put this into motion real quick, and you can kind of see that center of circulation. Looks like it has moved north of Fort Polk now up toward the Simpson area, but it's definitely filling in. There's not much of an actual eye visible anymore on the radar, but there's definitely a lot of rain going on still across Vernon. There are some breaks in Beauregard, but there's still this band that has still been set up from Jasper down to near DeQuincy and then over toward the Kinder area. And wherever it's raining, for sure, the winds would be gusty, probably 50 to 60 mile per hour gusts still wherever it is raining, even as far south as near DeQuincy. Now, as you go farther south yet, things definitely improve. There's not a lot of rain showing up across Calcasieu Parish, especially along the I-10 corridor, not seeing much all the way to Jennings, and same story with Cameron. There's just not a lot showing up. And I mentioned the rain band that's off to the east. You can see that going on over in places like St. Mary Parish, and over here in the Baton Rouge area even, that rain band is going on here. And I told you early this morning that I didn't expect that to move a whole lot, and it may have moved a whole total of 10 to 20 miles east, and that's about it, and it extends way offshore. So that's kind of a quick wrap up. We're trying to effort more information now that the sun is up, but I do realize those of you in Vernon, Beauregard, and Allen Parish, trust me, we're not ignoring you guys, but things are much better than they were when this storm was farther south. But it is still very windy, wind gust at the very least, probably 60 to 70 miles per hour in places, but should be improving. This will continue to move on north, and probably in the next hour to hour and a half, maybe 8:30ish in the morning, we might be somewhat better off in Beauregard and Allen Parish. Probably going to take until at least after 9 o'clock this morning for Vernon Parish to see somewhat improved conditions. But again, Shelby, as we talked about earlier, I'm calling it improved, but even across Calcasieu, Jeff Davis, and Cameron parishes, it is still breezy, very breezy. So yes, it is not raining. No, the winds are not extreme to cause damage anymore, but it is still very windy and enough to probably keep officials from wanting to venture out very much, because you don't want to get out there, because if there's tree limbs that are just barely hanging on, any amount of wind at all could knock something down, and you don't want to cause more problems with that.
And that was going to be my question, was at what point in the day, is it today, is it tomorrow, that we're going to see no more effects of Hurricane Laura throughout southwest Louisiana?
Technically, I think you'd really say tomorrow.
Okay.
I mean, there won't be as much noticeable effects by later today, but it still is going to be breezier than normal, compared to what we went through earlier. It'll seem like nothing, but it'll be breezier than a normal afternoon by today, and it's just going to feel muggy. The air is just going to be super heavy.
A few days
Yeah,
ago before
and this is going to be
made
worse.
landfall.
And this is going to be worse. And of course, it's compounded by the fact that many places don't have air conditioning, so you don't have a place to escape that mugginess and that heat. So that's just going to compound it. And please keep that in mind too. It's one thing we haven't touched on yet, but now that we're pushing toward that cleanup effort now, please keep in mind that dehydration can set in fairly easily. This is southwest Louisiana. This is the heart of summer. Once the sun comes out, may not be as much of an issue yet, since we're still a lot of clouds, but definitely tomorrow, with the sun's out, the heat index may be well over 100 degrees. So please drink as much water as possible if you are out there doing anything strenuous, which would be pretty much anything related to cleanup. So please keep that in mind, because the last thing you want to do is start to do something and get dehydrated and have to go to the hospital.
And so I know we're really focusing on the now now, but what about the future, so that people can start planning for the next few days as they look to come back or look to do those cleanup efforts? I know a couple of days ago Ben was talking about the potential for Laura to come through, obviously drop some rain, do some damage, but we're also looking to get some rain over the next few days as well. Is that correct?
Basically, it's a summer pattern. We're going to see maybe a little bit more than a normal summer day, just because Laura has brought a ton of moisture into southwest Louisiana, and all it'll take is the daytime heating to spark showers, more so than a normal summer day. So yes, it's not going to be dry. There will be showers around, so keep that in mind for planning purposes and whatnot. Those will be around.
All right. Well, again, we're still waiting for updates on many different parishes throughout southwest Louisiana. We've put in a call we've talked to Calcasieu Sheriff's Office, They've received damage. still working to get in contact with some people over in Cameron Parish, Beauregard, as Wade said, that they are still receiving some of the effects of Hurricane Laura. That band right here is still making its way over them, and we're just really working to get in contact with all of our different parishes in Southwest Louisiana. I know a lot of you guys, like I said, are across the country tuning in, really trying to see if you've got loved ones there, maybe your loved ones evacuated, maybe you're wondering what's going on in your hometown. We are trying to get those answers for you as soon as possible.
Yeah, and we've got some video now. This is from Crowley. We showed you some from there earlier when it was dark, but now it's daylight, and you can see much better what's going on. You can still see the wind that is definitely noticeable, and I don't see much sign that it's actually raining there, and radar even proves that it's not, and but that's just the wind. So that's what I was talking about, the fact that, yes, the radar over here shows that there's not a lot of rain left, but please remember, it is going to be breezy to borderline windy for at least several more hours, and that definitely right there proves what is going on with respect to that it is going to remain very windy for several more hours. So, and that's enough. It's probably not going to do extensive damage, but again, if there was something that was hanging, that was loose, sure, could be blown down, yes. No, it's not going to blow trees down, but sure, if there's limbs hanging from them, yeah, it could cause some damage still.
And it's nice to see the sunrise and the daylight again, because
yes,
it was dark starting yesterday at, it must have been 1 o'clock, and I could already see those clouds starting to roll in and really start to darken the sky, and that was pretty scary before, and that was a little bit before we evacuated here to Baton Rouge, and the storm hadn't even really hit yet. So I can only imagine what it was like to go through it the entire night, hear those different sounds through houses, through businesses. I saw one video, and it was the sounds through the Golden Nugget Hotel, and it was very eerie because there's no one there, but the wind is just kind of going around in the hotel.
Yeah, just eerie sounding. I've been there since I was there in Southwest Louisiana with Rita. Trust me, I get that sound, but I know everyone that was there with John and Rhonda saying that it's even worse than what that sound was with Rita. It was to another level, which makes sense. As we said, that wind was to another level, really, because of the strength of that wind. So.
Yes, sir. Still working to get information, as Wade said. You know,
we are.
Those wind speeds are down here in Calcasieu Parish.
We are. We'll take a quick look at the wind. Again, there's not too many of these stations that are reporting, but I do see signs that the storm is pulling past Fort Polk, and we know that because of the wind direction. It's gone all around the compass. It was a westerly wind earlier. Now it's a southeaster or southwesterly wind. It was an easterly wind earlier. Now it's a southwesterly wind. That's evidence of the circulation now moving north of Fort Polk. Good news, too. You'll notice the wind, yes, breezy, but we're not seeing extreme numbers coming up. I see Alexander at the very top of that screen reporting 54-mile-per-hour winds, so definitely a little breezier up there. And they will continue to see conditions deteriorate across central Louisiana now. So if you know folks up there, keep that in mind, that things are definitely going to get worse. We did the 7 o'clock advisory, so I don't need to redo that. But we'll take a quick look at the radar one more time as our folks behind the scenes, and there's a lot of folks here that are efforting, trying to get more information,
yes, and
calling.
And guys, if you are in Southwest Louisiana, Calcasieu, Beauregard, Vernon, any of the different parishes, and you have photos of damage that's maybe right outside your window, we're not asking you to go and explore, but if you're at your home and you're able to go outside for a second and the weather's not bad, please send us in those damaged videos. Tell us where you are, what you're coming from, what you experienced last night. You can still message us on KPLC TV, our Facebook page. Send us an email at kplcnewsreleases@kplctv.com.
And we've got some pictures since we want to see these. Here's some pictures, and it's interesting because this is right across the street from our station. That's the Muller's building, and you can see definitely an upper story there. The windows are blown out up there. You can see the canopy, which to be expected. The canopies are always the weak part, but that is kind of blown down as well. And that is kind of around
the roof collapsed in there a little bit. That's what I'm seeing, structural damage.
So definitely evidence of significant damage for sure, and I know we're going to see more of that very soon now that
Right.
folks are getting out and about.
Thank you, Patrick, for those pictures. So, like I said, if you have pictures of what's going on at your home, like I said, we're not asking you to go out and explore. Just send us in those pictures and videos if you can on our Facebook page. If you know a reporter, if you follow one of our pages, send those to us. We're all checking them around the clock. So we're definitely looking for those pictures and videos and eyes on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. It may be hard for you to get pictures from you to us, but trust me, we're efforting that as much as possible, and trust me, we want to show that too. And I'm beginning to hear from more and more folks here that I know personally as well. So
that stayed to ride out the storm.
It's going to be interesting to hear from them as to what they see at their location, especially the few that I know their house. So it's going to be interesting to hear how that's played out.
And if you know anyone looking for help, I know especially in Calcasieu Parish, the Christus hospitals, they did keep their emergency rooms open. If you are in dire need of help and need emergency assistance, that is available to you. I would still call 911 first and see if maybe someone can get to you as soon as possible to see if you can maybe wait. But if not, that hospital is open, whereas Memorial is not. Again, CalCam, we receive reports that they receive damage, so I would definitely be careful with that. I'm not sure if their emergency room was open or not.
And speaking of damage, we got some more pictures coming in now. This is of the Cumulus Media radio group that's just down the street from us as well, and you can see some of the damage to their building there, quite extensive. Certainly appreciate whoever is sending all that in. We appreciate the pictures, and certainly we are interested, I know, to see our own building as well.
Right.
So, but trust me, we want to get as many of those out as humanly possible. We'll keep you posted, and
and all of these look like wind damage. You know,
yeah.
We're not seeing too many pictures of flooded areas.
No, and that goes to the point. I don't think we're going to. You know, I've said that all night. I didn't think we were going to. Once this storm made landfall, like this discussion we had earlier, once it made its landfall where it did, I was pretty convinced we were not going to see the surge, and it's definitely proved out because there were numerous storm chasers that were in town with video that was live. We couldn't show it to you here because of some TV restrictions, but we were watching it, and if they were sitting there in their own vehicle, trust me, it wasn't flooded, and we could see the parking lot of the Civic Center at times, and there was never any water on it. So that proved the surge never got that high. So that's good. That's the one positive we're going to find from this. I hope we find some other positives out there, but that is definitely the one positive I know that has come about of this storm, is that there wasn't a surge.
And I would think that
or as bad of a surge.
Yes, that would be a really big positive. You know, obviously with the wind damage, if the winds are messing up people's roofs and everything, obviously rain is going to get inside, but it's a little different when you have floodwaters rising in your home. You know, I'm from Houston, Texas, and my family went through Harvey,
right?
And I had multiple family members who said, you know, they were in second story apartment buildings and second floor homes that the water rose all the way up to that second floor, and so that's a lot of water to have inside your home. But rain damage is a little bit different than flood damage.
Yeah, and you know, on a technical term, you know, as far as homes are
Salt
concerned,
water damage.
well, you know, my point is insurance. You know, if it's just rain, that's not flood. That is covered by your normal homeowners. You're not talking about a flood. You're not having to have this argument of was it wind or was it water that caused your damage. So if it's just rain that came in because there's a hole in your roof, that's wind damage. That's not a flood that caused that. So we're probably not going to see that as widespread. It's still going to be a case at the coastline, but everyone in Cameron Parish should have flood insurance. So it's the more of the issue in Calcasieu Parish, you know, especially in places where maybe you're pseudo not in a flood zone, even though there's no such thing as no flood zone, but maybe you feel the risk is enough that you can risk not having flood insurance. You're not going to be in that battle of we had damage, you know, from flooding.
And I do believe that Ben is trying to get us some possible video Is that what you're doing?
Someone too, Roger Erickson.
Okay, but he has an interview.
I'm gonna do it on the phone.
You're at the lakefront?
He's at the lakefront.
I'll let you come.
Okay,
I'll let
okay.
you come sit here because I actually have
I
another
don't-
phone call. I'm going to
Yes.
call and
Take
check
a break.
on.
I'm on line 2, by the way, Patrick. I think you got me.
So we're bringing in
And
Ben.
yeah, so a little bit concerning. I'm going to call meteorologist Roger Erickson with the National Weather Service right now, and he just messaged me some information. He's actually standing by Lake Charles at this moment, and I'm particularly concerned about the water that's still coming up. So I'm going to see if I can get him on the phone here, and we're going to ask him what it looks like. And I do have some video on my Facebook page as well of what he is seeing. Good morning, Roger.
Hey.
Roger Erickson with the National Weather Service, and we got your video that we're going to be showing as well of the conditions that are on Lake Charles, and you said you were concerned about the water that's still rising there around the high tide. What's it looking like out there?
That's right. Just walked out of the emergency management office downtown Lake Charles. Walked across the street to the boardwalk, and the water's up over the top of it. Getting ready to enter the parking lot here probably within the next hour around the Civic Center.
So yeah, it looked like the water was coming up. Is it coming up over the seawall and moving toward it's coming out of its banks? And so are you concerned about water at this point coming into downtown?
Well after landfall, the winds have shifted to the south now, and now we're pulling all that water up the river, up out of Cameron Parish, what's drawing a flood right here near the Civic Center, and eventually, if it doesn't stop, we'll be flooding parts of downtown.
And so at this moment, it doesn't look like it's stopping, right? I'm looking at the video that you just posted. It's still rising?
Right. It's rising, I would say probably at least a foot an hour right now.
And do you think that has something to do with this coinciding with the high tide, and in addition to the fact that we've had that wind shift, like you said, now out of the south?
Right. What happens is when you get this big storm surge that comes in down in Cameron, and we know that the gauge in downtown Cameron got up to 11 feet. So you imagine 11 feet of water just kind of laying across the surface down there all the way up to the coastal waterway, and then it starts funneling through the river up here in the downtown Lake Charles. So it's kind of like almost like a pulsation of the water where it's rising rather rapidly down here.
How much higher do you think that water is going to get before you start seeing some encroachment on the downtown area? Obviously, the buildings downtown have sustained quite a bit of wind damage. Is it looking like it's going to make it into the downtown area? I know we have the seawall there. You're showing the video. Does it have a ways to go before we start seeing problems?
Yes. It's going to flood originally starting out down here in the parking lot, and then it takes a little bit to get back across the parking lot and start getting onto the streets. But I will add, Lakeshore Drive here has a lot of standing water from the rainfall, and it can't drain now out into the lake because of the water levels rising so rapidly in the lake.
That's right, because of our drainage that we have. The water is gravity drainage into Lake Charles, so when all that's backed up and you get the rainfall, it really has nowhere to go. It just turns into a bowl. So at this point, looking at high tide, it looked like it was at 6:05 for high tide at Lake Charles there. So do you think it's going to continue to rise? And now that we've reached high tide, I know that's just a point in time, but we're in the 7 o'clock hour now. Do you think at some point this water will start to level off? Or I know we're having trouble with some of the tide gauge readings there. I know the one for the Calcasieu saltwater barrier looked like it stopped reporting at about 1:30 this morning, so it wasn't giving us accurate information. Do you think you're going to be able to reach that peak forecast, or is it is it looking like it may not be quite as high?
Well, you think back to 2008 with Hurricane Ike. We got up to about 10 feet down here in Lake Charles in terms of the elevation above sea level, basically. And we're probably going to get at least that level, maybe another foot above that.
Okay.
So for everyone that remembers what happened during Hurricane Ike, place another foot of water across that.
Okay, so that's a good reference point for people who may be wondering now that the wind has died down. Now we have that problem with the water rise, and so you think about a foot higher than what you saw in Ike. If you do the math there. Yeah.
That's what I would say as a minimum. I mean, it could go higher. You'll have to just watch. The gauge down here it's rising rapidly. It's certainly not showing a flat crest at all at this stage of the game. So Let's see what this is going to last. I mean, I believe it's going to last into the first part of the afternoon.
All right, well, we'll let you go. I know you're trying to get some video as well, and if you post another Facebook Live or post some video, we may want to share that again and get back in contact with you a little later. Are you planning to stay at that location for a while to see just how high the water gets? I know you're going to move if you feel like it's dangerous, but is your plan to kind of just keep watching things at the lakefront for now?
Well, I'm going to be coming back down here periodically. I'm going to go back down to the National Weather Service office when I get out. And then we'll be driving around the community to see how everyone else is.
Right. I know you were one of the few that actually stayed with the Weather Service folks evacuating. You're going to probably just go kind of survey some of the damage in the office and maybe see what the extent of those problems are, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we stayed here in the Magnolia building downtown, and it's an 11-story building, and I was on the second floor, and the whole building was shaking and rocking like there was an earthquake, and the building was going to collapse. It didn't, but it was scary for about 3 hours overnight there.
Wow. I know you're close to downtown. I don't know if you mind doing us a little favor. We've had reports that our tower has collapsed on KPLC. We have not been able to get any usable video or photos of what our building looks like. We're concerned about the building may have taken on some extensive damage. So if you're in that area and you wouldn't mind swinging by, we surely would appreciate it. We're hunkering down here at WAFB in Baton Rouge as we continue to broadcast, but we've gotten some pretty grim photos from overnight of our tower over the building. We're just concerned about the damage that we could have from that around the downtown area. So that would be very helpful if we could get some video from that. Thank you so much, Roger Erickson, again with the National Weather Service in Lake Charles. Again, talking to him. I'm going to let you go now, Roger, so you can head out about some of the concerns that the water is still rising in Lake Charles, again, kind of coinciding with high tide and that turn in winds. And he's saying that the water looks like it's coming up pretty fast right now, and he's concerned about it being a little bit higher than what they saw for Ike. So, and that was one of the problems, we talked about this yesterday, was that the water rise would be well after this thing makes landfall when the winds shift, high tide in Lake Charles at 6 o'clock this morning. So hopefully it doesn't get much higher now, but he's saying that it appears that it's not really trying to recede at this point. So he told me on Facebook before I called him that he was concerned about water getting into downtown Lake Charles. And so that's another problem with these buildings that have already sustained substantial wind damage. And now people who may be trying to come out and do some cleanup and that type of thing may need to be thinking about the water maybe coming up in some of these buildings. So that's going to be kind of a 1-2 punch for what we're dealing with, because if you look at radar, you'll see there's not much out there rain-wise left from the storm here in southwest Louisiana. We've had kind of a shift in the heavy rain. We're over in Baton Rouge, and we're taking some of the heaviest rain over on our side of the state this morning where we're located, bringing you this broadcast. But if you look closer to where the storm center is located, there's not a whole lot left rain-wise, but that does not show the surge potential that could still come up from below, and that's what we're seeing right now, crashing over the seawall there in Lake Charles. And of course, that's something that we are going to be getting more information on with Roger. He did say he's going to go down and kind of see what things look like down at the National Weather Service office.
But I think we've got some more storm pictures coming into the newsroom right now, so we're going to take a look at those. Do we happen to know where this is?
I saw this earlier. This is on Ryan Street. So this is going to be just south of I-210. On the left there, I believe that's the Blaze Smoke Shop off into the distance there, kind of in the distance. And these are some of the buildings along the route here. So you can see a.
Nick Hunter.
Okay, we're gonna talk now to Mayor
Nick Hunter. Nick, this is Shelby. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing okay, and I'm going to be very honest that this is probably one of the first, I would say, top 10 phone calls I've made this morning, and so I have limited information, but I am okay, and I have been able to walk around downtown a little bit, but the extent of my knowledge of outside of the immediate downtown area is limited at the moment.
Okay, and I know we were having some problems getting in touch with you earlier. What was it like in those last few hours of the storm making landfall?
It was a life-changing experience. I evacuated for Rita, and I have not been through something like that before. And the noises of the generators kicking on, the electrical supply kicking off, the trees snapping, the wind howling, the glass breaking. It was pretty intense.
Mm-hmm. Is this something that you would do again?
Well, if I'm certainly as mayor, I think unless it would be, let me say this, under the same situations 24 hours ago, I would certainly stay again as mayor of Lake Charles, but I would never encourage anyone that was not needed to stay for an event like this to stay, because it was very dramatic. I mean, it was definitely, like I said, it was something you'll never forget to go through something like that.
And so you said that you were able to walk around downtown. There's some damage in downtown. We saw a few pictures earlier. We just got a few pictures from Ryan Street. I guess what's next for you, Mayor?
Well, we're going to go into search and rescue mode as soon as is humanly possible. I can tell you that at this moment, we do not know of any city personnel that has been injured or loss of life. So I want to make that very clear that I can only account for city personnel. We do not know of any injury or loss of life. And now it's really search and rescue mode as soon as that is deemed safe. It is still very gusty. There are a lot of down power lines. There are a lot of down trees. So it's not like you just turn on a switch and then start picking people up at their homes and bringing them somewhere. Literally at the moment, you can't traverse around Lake Charles because of the massive amounts of trees down and power lines down.
And see, that's a big concern, I guess, because we've been saying that there's not a lot of flooding in the area that we know of, but those down power lines can be really dangerous because they're just they're in the way as well as the trees. And so you guys are still experiencing heavy winds there. At what point in the day of the winds, and how much do they have to die down before you guys are going to be able to go out there fully for search and rescue?
Well, I can't give you an exact hour or moment in the day, but I can tell you as soon as winds reach 40 miles per hour or less is when our public safety can really begin search and rescue and get out to people. I also want to caution you, you said you haven't seen a lot of flooding. I did not see a lot of flooding in my quick traverse around downtown. However, that doesn't mean that couldn't change.
Right. We were just talking with the National Weather Service about that.
So I really want to caution people, if they see some early images and they see that perhaps the street's not flooded or a certain neighborhood is not flooded, unfortunately, even though the worst of the storm itself has passed, that could change. And, we have been kind of comparing this to Rita, rightly or wrongly. At the end of the day, that's what people's memories are, and that's what people's benchmarks are. I can tell you from just a visual of looking at some of the damage to buildings, it looks similar to Rita. And I would encourage people, I would encourage people not to come back today. It is going to take a while to pick up the pieces, and if people are trying to get back in today, if they risk injury to themselves, again, by down power lines, by debris in the road, there is a possibility of more rising water. So if people are trying to come back in today, they absolutely risk injury to themselves, and they would put our public safety at risk if they tried to come back in today.
And so have you been able to get in contact with any of the other local officials in Calcasieu or even some of the surrounding parishes? This is a very early phone call. As soon as I hang up with this phone call, that is going to happen. I think one of the most immediate things that I wanted people to know is it was bad, and it is bad, but, I do believe that, to me, with what we're going through right now, it is similar to Rita, and we recovered from Rita.
as I look around today and see the damage, it's bad, but we can and we will recover from this. That's the main message I wanted to get out as quickly as possible to people who were evacuated and spread out outside of Lake Charles.
And that's a good message. We will recover, especially as a community coming together, just like we came together to prepare for this storm. We're going to come together to recover from this storm.
Mayor, thanks Mayor, thanks for that word. You know, we kind of needed to hear that. You know, we've seen some pictures. Obviously, we're concerned. We evacuated our building, and our KPLC tower did collapse. So we're getting
what you're looking at right now.
We're getting some pictures now, kind of a first light of that. And of course, this to me is certainly going to be more of a wind event for our area. Here, and certainly, like you brought up as well, the need to not necessarily venture out because of that potential that we could still see a little more water rise. I was talking to Roger Erickson at the National Weather Service, and he's out by the lakefront earlier on the phone saying that the water was still coming up with the south wind, and a lot of that surge is building up now into Lake Charles. So there's a possibility there could be some water getting into the downtown area. So that's one of the problems that we could be faced with this morning for people who may be trying to go out, you know, and look at some of this damage.
Yes, amen. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
All right, Mayor, we know you are busy trying to get a picture of what the damage is looking at. I know you've got a lot on your plate. We're going to touch base with you a little bit later, and please call us if you have any updates about what's happening in the city of Lake Charles, because I know Southwest Louisiana wants to know.
Thanks
again.
Okay,
will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
And I'll tell you what, just by this phone call, you're letting a lot of people who are trying to text me and ask if I'm okay know that I'm okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
The mayor is okay.
The mayor of Lake Charles is okay, Southwest
Great to hear.
Louisiana.
Again, Mayor Nick Hunter, Mayor of Lake Charles, kind of with some words we needed to hear this morning because the first light of day coming up, terrifying and hard to believe that we're still dealing with a Category 2 hurricane now, still over land, now moving towards Shreveport. So there's going to be a lot more wind damage associated with this. It's going to be not a disaster here just for Southwest Louisiana, but it's going to cause some far-reaching impacts even for our folks inland that might have evacuated to Alexandria or Shreveport, likely going to see a pretty significant power loss in that area as well. Of course, we're over in Baton Rouge right now. A lot of the heavy rain from the storm is kind of extending well east of the center, so we're actually dealing with a lot of the rain bands here. So there's a lot of facets to this impact to our state, and of course, now that the worst has moved through Lake Charles, and we're getting some of those photos sent in to us, and we appreciate all those folks. And I've got a few people I'm going to call here as well because I put a kind of a call out on Facebook that if anyone had ridden this storm out in Southwest Louisiana to give me your number, and I wanted to kind of hear your story about what it was like going through that in the overnight hours. And so I'm going to be getting in touch with a couple people here in a minute to kind of get their first take on what it was like and maybe give advice to people who didn't evacuate and let you know if you did evacuate if it was the right thing or not, because I'm sure they've got some pretty intense words about what it was like going through it.
I mean, from what I'm hearing, you know, this morning and late last night, I mean, I think it was a good idea to have everyone evacuate. I mean, obviously the people that rode out the storm, from what we're hearing, they seem to be okay. We haven't heard of anybody severely injured from this storm, but we are still working to get that information. But I mean, I think it's really good that people were able to evacuate, because from what it seems like, it was truly scary. You know, people have said that the buildings were rattling, and for a while there, they were worried.
Yes, and that's the kind of the fear of the unknown that we still have at this moment, because we were talking with the fire department last night about how the emergency responders, you know, once those winds reach 40 miles per hour, they don't go out. And right now the problem is going out because of roads blocked by what you saw in the pictures that we showed earlier. There were bricks in the road.
Yes, and that was right in downtown.
There are all kind of obstacles
throw that up
there.
Patrick.
You're going to have nails. You're going to have a lot of nails in the roads. There's going to be problems if you try to drive around with flat tires and things like that at this moment. And again, this is looking over downtown. That's Gigi's downtown. The very iconic Lake Charles sign there you can see in the distance is half gone. So looks like maybe the top of that building up where they have the fitness area. I was doing a body pump class up there just last week, you know, and it's hard to believe that a lot of that's going to look completely different now. Now that we got the damaged photos we have coming in this morning. That looks like the Muller's apartment directly across from KPLC Studios on Division Street, and that is looking at the collapse there of that awning. And this appears to be...
This is the radio station downtown.
Is this the town square, or is this the Cumulus?
Cumulus. This is the Cumulus
so that's going to be your station group there that has Kix 96 radio They have several stations there in that building that they Rock 101, they have several of them that are housed there, so you can see a lot of damage to their studio there. That's just a couple blocks from our studio in Lake Charles as well. Look at that tree damage. So I think the mayor did point out that this damage to him was significant, was similar to Rita. I think the wind damage is going to be worse than Rita with what we're seeing now. Obviously, our tower didn't collapse in Rita, so we're seeing things that make us believe that that's going to be likely the legacy this storm leaves. And not the surge, as Wade was talking about, but more so the wind damage aspect of this is what we're going to be left with. A lot more problems for people that may have homes, but they're going to probably have some water in them when they get back. If the roof is still there, you know, you're probably going to have a lot more problems with that if you did get by. I know I talked to a few folks that said they went through Rita and they didn't have any problems. They never had a roof leak. So maybe not the case this time, you know, when you get back to your house. And so, you know, we're hoping that our homes are there. You know, I had to leave my cat at home. You know,
you left Vincent?
You know, we had to make a last-minute decision yesterday to leave our studio when all of this was coming to fruition with the threat level rising with what you see right now has happened. So we had to leave, you know, and had made those plans. We had made plans to ride it out in Lake Charles. That was the plan, you know, and I'd say, well, you know what, I can probably get back home by Friday to the house. And so, you know, I put out some extra food and stuff. And so at some point, I'm going to get back to my house. You know, it may not be today or it may not be tomorrow, but when they finally do get some things cleared. I know a lot of people are asking those same questions. You know, maybe you didn't evacuate with your pet. You had to make a last-minute decision, because we were literally on the air last night at 7 o'clock saying, you know, if you were to leave your house at this moment and get on the interstate, you can still get out of harm's way. But it was a decision that a lot of folks probably had to make right at that last moment that it was still possible to evacuate. So we don't want to hear anybody, we hope to not hear any reports of loss of life from this. And hopefully, I think most people probably took it seriously. I know a lot of people didn't leave, though. A lot of people stayed. And so they're going to have some stories to tell about this storm. It's going to be rewriting the history of Southwest Louisiana. You can erase what we talked about with Rita. This one's going to be a lot more impactful for our area, with people who were there, may not have been there for Rita. I think a lot of people probably evacuated for Rita and probably stayed for this storm. And so,
and I think another thing that you have to realize, Ben, is Rita hit 15 years ago. So there's a whole new generation that's here right now in Southwest Louisiana that maybe did evacuate. You know, I think I was maybe 10 or 12 when Hurricane Rita hit. I was in Houston and we evacuated to Dallas, but there's plenty of people in Southwest Louisiana that maybe evacuated for that one and decided to stay for this one. So it's going to be a whole new generation of people telling stories about these different hurricanes.
Yeah, getting some new visuals. This looks like Nelson Road there as you get toward the Chick-fil-A, and that's the gas station there on the right, the big Tobacco Mart gas station right there at the red light. You'd be just past, I guess, the Panera Bread on the right. Panera Bread on the right.
Walmart, the Panera.
At Freon Lake Road.
That's
right
Lake
at there,
Road.
Freon.
We don't know.
I think we took a power hit.
We are, but
And our switches reset, so it takes a second for it to come back on.
they may have to come to that one because it's dead like it was.
Everything went off. Did y'all have another power hit earlier?
Yeah, it happened earlier.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what his name is, but short of go.
Password?
The Wi-Fi password?
Log in. Jacob had it, but he never told me what it was. Luckily they'll be able to do it, I guess.
That's not what I asked.
All right, we'll get it back there. We got a lot of coverage ahead. Everybody take a break for a second.
Mm-hmm. Sydney, thank you so much for this chicken McGriddle.
Great. I watched
This
y'all most of the
McGriddle.
night. I was trying to sleep.
This is
hard, you know.
sausage egg McGriddle.
That was real originally. You're welcome for that.
I mean, it's kind of like all our passwords that were KPLC something. If the hackers only knew. I guess we'll get it restarted in a minute. Okay. There we go. What's your name, by the way? Sydney. Sydney. Wow, that's You're standing right in front of Sydney.
I thought you had asked Sydney what Sydney's name was, and I was like,
yes.
Ben. That's Sydney.
Yeah, I'll never forget your name. I'll never have to ask your name again.
The chief never sleeps.
It's pure adrenaline right now.
Sleep is for quitters, right, Wade?
Okay, be careful. They say our audio could be going out.
It is hot. Audio is hot.
My mic is currently muted, but there are hot mics in this room.
Yes.
If you can hear